The sky split open with a scream of metal. Jack Braddock looked up from his porch, a half-carved piece of wood forgotten in his hands. Something massive, burning like hell's own comet, tore through the clouds and slammed into the valley 2 ridges over. The shock wave came seconds later, rattling the windows and waking the goats in the barn. He didn't flinch. Just took a long pull from his tin cup of bitter coffee and muttered, "Well, that's new." Montana had always been quiet. That was why he'd chosen it. After 30 years of war, Jack didn't want noise. He didn't want orders or politics or command chains. Just the trees, the silence, and the faint smell of pine. But as dust settled in the distance, Jack knew the quiet had finally run out. He stepped back into the cabin, kicked the rug aside, and opened a trapdoor with a groan of old hinges. The underground bunker was cramped and cold, but it housed everything the world above had forgotten: ammo crates, ration packs, and a shotgun older than some governments. He ran his hand along the walnut stock, felt the weight of it settle into his palm. Reliable, brutal, simple. He climbed out with the weapon slung across his back. Outside, the radio crackled. Jack adjusted the dial, and a robotic voice emerged through the static. "Earth's resistance is futile. You have 60 seconds to surrender. Zarkith Dominion offers swift assimilation." He grunted. 60 seconds, huh? He set the cup down gently and pumped the shotgun. The sound echoed into the hills. "Guess I got 61. A shadow fell across the barn. The drop pod hadn't landed in the valley. It had landed in his damn goat field. 4 Zarkith soldiers disembarked, towering things in angular exo-armor, their movements sharp and unnatural. Jack crouched behind the split rail fence, watching. No formation. No caution. They thought the area was clear. They were wrong. He loaded a shell. Buckshot. Not elegant, but up close it didn't need to be. The lead alien scanned the barn. Life signatures detected. Proceeding. Jack moved before the others could follow. He crossed the dirt in complete silence, sliding between the shadows of his tool shed and the pump house. At the base of the water tower, he waited. When the first soldier passed, Jack rose like a ghost and fired. The blast hit square in the neck joint of its armor. The thing dropped without a sound, lights flickering on its helmet. The other 3 turned too late. Jack ducked behind a tractor as plasma bolts ripped through the wooden fencing, lighting the field on fire. He rolled left, fired again, caught the second one in the thigh. It staggered, screeching in some guttural dialect. Jack closed the gap and drove the shotgun barrel under its chin. Click. He didn't flinch. Just pulled his K-bar and rammed it between 2 plates in its armor. The last 2 regrouped, flanking. He tossed a flashbang. Light and sound cracked the air like thunder. Jack charged through the disoriented fog, emptying both barrels of his shotgun at close range. Silence returned to the valley, broken only by the bleating of confused goats. Jack stood amid scorched grass, exhaling slowly. 4 Zarkith troopers lay motionless. He reloaded, checked the field, then kicked over one of the armored corpses. "Too easy," he muttered. "They sent scouts. Not killers." He dragged the bodies to the creek bed, covering them in brush. They might come looking, but he'd bought himself time. Back in the cabin, he opened the old footlocker. Inside were dog tags, maps, an encrypted field tablet, and a faded photo of a younger man in uniform standing with his squad. Most of them were long dead. He picked up the photo, stared for a second, then tucked it into his vest. The radio lit up again, this time with a different voice, raspy, alien, impatient. "Unit Delta 7 has gone silent. Dispatching interceptor drones. All humans will comply." Jack switched the radio off. "We'll see about that." He set up motion sensors along the tree line and mounted an old hunter's scope on the porch railing. The drones would come, but he'd be ready. He always was. As the sun dipped behind the peaks, the first hum of alien engines whispered overhead. Jack crouched low, watching the sky burn faint green from their contrails. He didn't speak, didn't move, Just waited, like a hunter in the old woods, like a man who'd done this too many times before. He wasn't fighting for medals. Wasn't fighting for orders. Hell, he wasn't even fighting for Earth anymore. He was fighting because someone thought they could take something from him and walk away. Big mistake. Night fell hard over the valley, stars obscured by clouds and the pale, sickly glow of descending drones. Their triangular silhouettes moved with precision, scanning tree lines and outcroppings, casting green cones of light onto the earth. Jack Braddock watched from his attic window through a slit in the boarded-up wall. He didn't breathe. Not yet. He counted 4. 2 patrolling near the ridge. 1 circling the barn. 1 hovering too close to the cabin. Too curious, he muttered. He crept down, every step practiced and silent. At the kitchen table, he laid out the contents of an old military satchel, det cord, an EMP puck, 2 Molotovs, and a small hand-detonated claymore. Jack stared at the EMP. "This is cheating," he said to nobody, then smirked and grabbed it. He left the front door open just enough. The drone's sensors pinged. Its green light swept the porch, paused on the cracked cup, and drifted closer. That was its last mistake. Jack lobbed the EMP underhand like skipping a stone. It slid under the drone just as it passed the threshold. Whump. The drone dropped from the sky like a puppet with cut strings, slamming into the dirt in a flurry of sparks. Its limbs twitched once, then stopped moving. The lights in the trees went berserk. They knew. Jack vanished into the forest. Within minutes, the other drones adjusted. Their movements became tighter, more coordinated. He heard the unmistakable whine of propulsion shifting. The Zarkith had switched to heat tracking. "About damn time," he whispered, sliding down a muddy embankment toward the river. He'd been building this trap for years, never thinking he'd actually need it. Under the old logging bridge, he lifted a camouflaged plank. Inside, hidden beneath years of moss and rock, sat a hard case with a prototype signal jammer, one of the last gifts from his days with Earth's Special Recon Corps. He activated it and tucked it beside the support beam. "Let's dance," he said, retreating uphill. 20 minutes later, 2 drones buzzed toward the bridge, tracking heat signatures Jack had planted, bags of warm goat's milk laced with metal shavings and suspended by fishing line. As they hovered to analyze, the jammer spiked their sensors into chaos. Jack triggered the explosives. The bridge erupted in flame and splinters, taking both drones with it. His radio buzzed, faint at first. He hadn't used the military band in years. "Unknown unit, this is Echo 3. Signals indicate combat activity in Sector B-49. Identify." Jack paused. That voice, young, tight, trying not to show panic. Some poor greenhorn. He thumbed the mic. "This is civilian property, son. Recommend you pick another sector." A pause. Then, "Sir, do you have visual confirmation of the Zarkith units?" "I've got confirmation, all right. 3 dead, 4 grounded. Expect more soon." "Sir, with all due respect, who the hell are you?" Jack cracked a grin. "I'm the guy who built this cabin before your daddy was shaving. Now stop broadcasting, you're painting a target." He cut the line. Back in the treeline, a sudden rustle made him spin, gun raised. But it wasn't alien. A girl, maybe 15, emerged from the underbrush, breathing hard, wrapped in a dirty jacket 3 sizes too big. Jack didn't lower the weapon. She raised her hands. "Don't shoot. I'm not one of them." His eyes narrowed. "Name?" "Lena. From Elkhorn. They came out of nowhere. We ran." "My brother," her voice cracked. "They shot him. I just ran." Jack scanned her. No tracker burns. No tech implants. Dirt under her fingernails. Real. Still, he motioned her forward with the barrel. Inside. Quiet. Once in the cabin, he bolted the door and tossed her a canteen. "You bring them here?" he asked. She shook her head. "I ran west. Through the creek. Lost them." He studied her. She was scared but not broken. "Good. You any good with a radio?" he asked. She blinked. I used to help my dad fix old set. Ham stuff. Great. You're hired. Jack slid a chair under her and placed the field tablet in front of her. Monitor local bands. If you hear anything that sounds like coordinates or troop movement, flag it. Anything about orbitals, wake me. You're fighting them? He gave her a look. You see anyone else out here? She didn't respond. Just nodded and got to work. Outside, the hum of more engines filled the air. This time, not drones, transports. Jack grabbed the claymore and a satchel charge. You stay here. If anyone but me walks through that door, you put a hole in them. She nodded again, this time with more steel in her eyes. Jack stepped out into the dark, wind pushing against him like it knew what was coming. He whispered to the night, "Round 2. Then he disappeared into the forest, shotgun in hand. The transport ship tore through the cloud cover like a scalpel slicing gauze. Its twin engines roared low, vibrating through the valley. Unlike the drones, this thing didn't bother being subtle. It didn't need to. Jack watched from the rocks above the clearing, eyes narrowed behind smudged binocular lenses. The ship braked hard, kicked up dirt, and hovered 10 feet above the ground. A side ramp hissed open. 3 figures dropped from the bay. 7 feet tall. Heavy exosuits, midnight black, bristling with mounted weaponry and glowing optics. Not full Zarkith. Hybrids. Combat synths with alien muscle and AI brains. Gen 3 enforcers. Jack exhaled through his nose. They're not playing anymore. The enforcers spread out, scanning the tree line with methodical precision. One knelt and pressed its palm to the ground. Within seconds, a swarm of spider-like scouts deployed from its back, scattering through the underbrush. Jack set down the binoculars and unslung the satchel from his shoulder. Inside, 5 pounds of C4, a remote detonator, and a motion-triggered flashbang. This wasn't about stopping the enforcers. This was about pissing them off and making them sloppy. He moved like smoke, low and fast, weaving between trees and rocks, planting charges with surgical speed. Each placed near natural choke points. The fallen log, the creek crossing, the game trail that looked clear but wasn't. The click of a scoutbot nearby made him freeze. It skittered past, legs tapping stone like a typewriter's teeth. It paused. Jack didn't breathe. Then it turned, sensors distracted by a heat signature, an old squirrel carcass warmed by a chemical pack he'd left hanging. It took the bait. He grinned. 50 yards away, the nearest enforcer cocked its head. Caught the signal. The scout stopped transmitting. Jack clicked his detonator once. Just enough to arm the charges. Boom. A controlled blast ripped through the trail. Shrapnel tore into 2 of the scouts, and the concussive wave sent a shock through the enforcer's HUD. They flinched, just a fraction, but it told him everything. Still got a learning curve, he whispered. Then the hunt began. Jack sprinted back toward the cabin, weaving a deliberate path through the woods. Behind him, the enforcers spread out and advanced with brutal confidence. Their synthetic voices buzzed through the air. Life form identified. Human male. Designation. Combatant. Priority 1. He reached a narrow gully, slipped behind a half-rotted log, and waited. One enforcer moved fast, too fast. Its boots crushed moss and roots like they weren't there. The claymore was hidden beneath a camouflage tarp. When the enforcer stepped on it, the explosion ripped upward, shredding its right leg and most of its torso. The synth screamed in an electric gargle and collapsed in a twitching heap. One down. The second one shifted tactics, now cautious, flanking wide. Jack sprinted left, angling toward the high ridge where he'd planted the satchel charge beneath a false rock. As he neared it, his earpiece buzzed. "Jack, it's Lena. Something's happening, up in the sky." He ducked behind a tree. "Talk to me." I counted 6, no, 8 ships just entered low orbit. Big ones. I think they're clearing landing zones. Jack cursed under his breath. They're not just scouting anymore. This is pre-invasion staging. We're the only ones out here. Why would they waste this many ships on us? He peered at the advancing enforcer. They're not just hunting me anymore, he muttered. They're testing how humans respond to extermination. He clicked the remote. Boom. The satchel charge tore a 15-foot crater into the ridge. The enforcer trying to flank him disappeared in the blast. The third one went still. Its optics recalibrated. It paused, analyzed, then did something unexpected. It turned around and began walking back toward the transport. Not on my watch, Jack growled. He sprinted downhill, heart pounding like a war drum. 30 seconds to intercept. 20. The enforcer didn't run. It walked, calculating every step. At 10 seconds out, Jack dove from the trees and slammed into it with full force, burying his blade between its shoulder plates. Sparks burst from its back. It grabbed him and flung him 5 feet into the dirt. His ribs screamed, but he rolled to his feet, shotgun up. The first blast blew off its faceplate. The second took the head. It twitched, then collapsed in a steaming pile of armor and black blood. Jack stood over it, panting. "Don't walk away from me." His radio buzzed. "Jack, they're moving toward nearby towns. I can hear chatter. They're pushing into populated zones." "Understood." He turned, limping toward the cabin. "Prep for evac." "We're not done yet." Back at the cabin, Lena had the gear bag packed and slung over her shoulder. Her face was pale, but she didn't tremble. "You okay?" Jack asked, wiping blood from his brow. "I will be," she said. "Where are we going?" He looked to the horizon. "The next fight." She nodded. They disappeared into the trees just as the sky above lit up with the glow of incoming dropships. The town of Red Ridge wasn't much. Just 24 homes, a dusty main street, and a diner that still served coffee that tasted like rusted nails. Jack remembered it from decades ago, back when he wore the uniform and passed through on weekend leave. Now it looked the same, but something in the air had changed. The people were too quiet. Doors shut too fast. Curtains twitched at every movement. The town knew something was wrong. It just didn't know how bad it was yet. Jack and Lena arrived at dusk, hiking in from the south through a dry wheat field. The last of the sun glinted off metal, dozens of gliders parked along the ridge. Sleek, low profile, almost invisible from above. Zarkith infantry ships. Silent. Efficient. Invasive. "Looks like a forward base," Jack muttered, scanning through binoculars. "No heavy armor yet, but they've established a foothold." Lena crouched beside him, eyes narrowed. "Why here? This town's nothing. Barely any strategic value." "That's the point," he said. "They're gauging how fast we react. No military response? They'll push further. Send in heavier units. Then we don't give them that chance." Jack nodded. "Time to send a message." They moved through the shadows of Red Ridge like ghosts. The locals kept their distance, too scared to ask questions. Jack stopped at the diner, rapped twice on the back door, and waited. It cracked open. "You look like hell," said an old man with a shotgun and a badge that had seen better days. "Still better than what's coming, Sheriff," Jack replied. "We need access to the church tower and every bottle of propane you've got in town." Sheriff Mallory didn't blink. "You got it." In less than an hour, Jack had rigged an ambush around the glider camp. Propane tanks wired to trip lines, flares hidden beneath hay bales, and a line of fuel-soaked soil traced around the field like a serpent waiting to ignite. By nightfall, the traps were in place. Lena stood atop the church tower, rifle resting on the ledge. Her breath fogged in the cool air. Below, the Zarkith emerged. Not enforcers this time. These were the infantry, shorter than the hybrids but more numerous. Insectal armor, glowing cyan visors, each carrying a plasma repeater and moving with cold, unnatural precision. She counted 30, then 50, then more. Jack waited in the shadows. His shotgun slung across his back. In his hand, the igniter. Lena's voice crackled in his earpiece. "Now!" Jack waited a heartbeat longer. One more step. One more second. Click. The field erupted. The propane tanks detonated with a roar that shattered windows. Fire raced across the dry ground, a wall of heat and fury. Screams, high-pitched and alien, echoed through the smoke. Zarkith's soldiers panicked, breaking ranks. A second wave of explosions sent shrapnel tearing through the camp. Fuel lines burned hot and bright, casting dancing shadows. Lena opened fire from above. Her shots were precise, each one cutting through armor joints and exposed visors. Jack moved like a storm, emerging from smoke, shotgun barking, reloading in practiced rhythm. One alien turned to flee. Jack caught it mid-step, blew out its knee with a slug, then crushed its chest plate with a second. Another tried to flank him. He ducked under its swing and buried his combat knife in the gap beneath its jaw. Sparks and ichor burst from the wound. It dropped with a metallic rattle. More incoming, Lena warned. North side. Jack pivoted. 4 Zarkith breached the burning line, unscathed. They moved faster, more disciplined, elite shock troopers. Each carried a twin-blade staff and a wrist-mounted shield. Jack fired. The slugs deflected off the shields. He cursed and ducked behind a stone wall as plasma bolts sizzled past. Lena fired again. 1-2 took out one trooper. But the other 3 pressed hard, forcing Jack into cover. He reached for the last trick in his bag, a homemade EMP grenade. No elegance, just raw disruption. He rolled it into their path. Thunk, pop. A pulse rippled through the air. Shields flickered. Armor twitched. For 3 seconds they were exposed. Jack didn't waste them. He surged forward, firing from the hip. One shot shattered the lead trooper's chest. The second broke through a helmet visor. The last, point-blank, took the third down in a spray of blue blood. Silence settled. Just fire, smoke, and the crackle of dying embers. Jack stood in the center of the ruined field, breathing heavy. Lena climbed down, her boots crunching on shattered glass and ash. "That wasn't just a scouting party," she said, voice grim. "No," Jack said. "They sent enough to take this town. Enough to test Earth's tolerance." Lena glanced at the smoking horizon. "So, what now?" "We escalate." Jack looked toward the sheriff, who stepped out of the diner with wide eyes. "Get everyone underground," Jack told him. "Tell your people to spread the word. The war's here." "And you?" the sheriff asked. Jack loaded another slug into his shotgun. "We make them regret landing on our soil." He turned to Lena. "Next stop, the comms array on the ridge. If we can hijack it, we send a message to every resistance cell left out there." She nodded. "Let's start a fire they can't put out." They disappeared into the smoke, moving toward the next battle. The old relay tower loomed atop the northern ridge like a forgotten sentinel, rusted and cracked from years of disuse. Decades ago, it bounced signals for civilian broadcasts, sports games, storm warnings, Sunday sermons. Now it might be the only way to light a fire across the world. Jack crouched beneath its frame, studying the exposed wiring. "This thing's been dead longer than some of the townsfolk," Lena muttered, scanning the surroundings. "You really think you can get it talking?" "I've hot-wired tanks in a war zone with nothing but gum foil and a prayer," Jack replied, tugging a cable loose. "Compared to that, this is a picnic." She smiled, but it didn't last. The air shifted, too still, too heavy. A low hum vibrated through the earth. "They're coming," she said. Jack didn't look up. "Buy me 10 minutes." Lena nodded and climbed the slope, settling into the rocks with her rifle. Through her scope, movement blurred the trees, shapes too tall, too smooth. Zarkith reinforcements, at least 100. Enforcers, infantry, those damn shock troops. All heading straight for the tower. She exhaled slowly. 10 minutes it is. Below, Jack worked fast. Panels sparked. Circuits screamed. He bypassed the fried regulator and hardwired his transmitter straight into the core. Static buzzed in his earpiece, then silence. Then, "Diagnostics online," a mechanical voice whispered. Jack grinned. "You beautiful, broken bastard." A surge of energy crawled through the tower's skeleton, blinking lights flaring to life one by one. but a strong signal needed a beacon. And to make it work, someone had to stay behind and keep it alive manually. Lena's voice crackled over comms. Contact. 5 minutes out. Moving fast. Hold them as long as you can, Jack replied. Almost there. She didn't answer. He knew why. Up top, Lena opened fire. Her shots cracked like thunder, dropping the lead wave before they reached the clearing. Plasma bolts answered, scorching the rocks around her. She shifted positions, never staying still. Never wasting a bullet. Below, Jack tuned the transmitter. Static cleared. The global resistance frequency came online. "This is Staff Sergeant Jack Harper," he said into the mic. "To anyone still alive, this is not a drill. Earth is under attack. Red Ridge has been hit. We need reinforcements. We need fighters. We need fire." He paused. Then his voice hardened. "But let them hear this too. Zarkith Command, your arrogance ends here. You thought you could take this planet quietly. But Earth doesn't kneel. We don't forget. And we never stop fighting." Static cracked louder now. Interference. The Zarkith had found the signal. Lena's breath was ragged in his earpiece. "They're circling around, trying to flank me." Jack adjusted the output manually. "Almost done. Hold." She fired again. 2 more bodies dropped. Then a bolt struck her cover, sending shrapnel into her shoulder. She bit back a scream and reloaded one-handed. "They're getting smart, Jack. I'm not gonna last much longer up here." Jack's hands hesitated over the controls. "You need to fall back," he said. "No," she snapped. "You said 10 minutes. I'm giving you 11. He smiled despite the noise. The transmission burst through the static. Clear. Wide. Every resistance cell, militia, and lone fighter heard the call. Somewhere in Australia, an underground base powered up. In the Alps, guerrilla soldiers loaded their rifles. In space, a forgotten Terran frigate came online. Across the globe, the fire was spreading. But the Zarkith were closing in. Jack turned to leave, and stopped. 5 shock troopers had crept around the base of the tower. One raised a blade. Jack moved first. The first slug shattered armor. The second punched through a visor. But there were too many. One caught his side with a blade, the serrated edge cutting deep. He staggered but didn't fall. Raised his shotgun. 3 left. 1 lunged. Jack sidestepped and unloaded point-blank. 2 left. The last one struck his knee, dropping him. Jack rolled and fired upward, hitting the alien mid-jump. It collapsed in a heap. Blood soaked his shirt. The world tilted. He slumped against the tower leg, breathing hard. Up top, Lena saw the last enforcer sprinting her way. No cover left. No time to reload. She stood and faced it. The alien raised its weapon. Lena raised her middle finger. A single shot rang out. The enforcer dropped. Jack lowered his smoking shotgun. "Still got it," he muttered, smiling through blood. She laughed, a broken sound. "Took you long enough." The tower hummed louder now. The signal was holding. The world was listening. Jack keyed his mic one last time. "To any human hearing this, fight back. Hit them where it hurts. Use what you have. You are not alone." He looked to Lena. She limped down from the ridge, dragging her rifle. "You're bleeding," she said. "So are you." They both chuckled, then sat beside the tower, leaning on each other like 2 tired statues guarding something sacred. Above them, the signal pulsed. Below, the wind carried smoke and the faint echoes of sirens from distant towns. For now, they had held the line. But the war was just beginning.